right, y'all, and welcome back to the Who's Right podcast. And well, it's starting. Everybody's going. But before we get into all that, subscribe to the channel, like this video. Let me know how you're feeling. Obviously, we're not feeling too great because at the end of the day, Mets have lost another losing week, and we're selling off players, right? So, which is ironic, right? You're selling off players, and it just goes to show you that baseball is a funny sport because you're selling off players that could help other clubs, but it just didn't mesh well here with the Mets. And so, again, what could you do? Not really much, but move on. But at the end of the day, um, this is baseball, and I still watch every game, and we're getting prepared for now 2027. So I'll do this one. Will be brief. I know last week I said I wouldn't come to you until after the trade deadline tomorrow, but I thought you know, maybe we'll do two videos, one today, one tomorrow after the trade deadline. Today to recap the week and preview next week, and talk about the trades that happened over the last couple of days between AJ Minter and Freddy Peralta today. The week that was, we played. What's it called? Atlanta. It took 2 out of 3 from Atlanta. Could have swept, but they didn't want to get swept. They really wanted to. They were really trying to win that sale game, and they did. But Scott looked well in that game. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Right now, what I'm looking for with the team is just to be competitive. Again, I'm not one that's going to be rooting for losses. So, I'm not going to be here rooting for that quote unquote draft pick possibility. I don't care, to be honest with you. I want to see competitive baseball. Ul- Ultimately, most of these prospects, don't pan out. So it's not like I'm worried about the pick that we get. So I want to see some competitive baseball. I want to see our young guys compete. I want to see how we start building for next year. What pieces we pick up. Because if you look at uh, trades in the past, and Evan Roberts talked about this. If you look at Stearns trades in the past, he does these trades to eventually trade them away for something else. And so I think this is exactly what we're going to be doing this offseason is picking up all these guys right now in this trade deadline, and then seeing what happens in the offseason. You know, One of the things that David Stern said a few weeks ago was that he also has to be careful with that, right? I think he said it himself that he made too many changes at one time, and for sometimes that's true. Sometimes you can't make all these changes, and so it's one of those things that it's a delicate balance. Am I upset that I'm not one of those Mets fans that's gonna keep going to the well of them trading away Nimmo and not signing Pete. I'm not. One, I wasn't for signing Pete, and two, I understood as much as I like Nimmo, I understood what they did there, and so I'm not gonna go back to the well on that every single time and be the dead horse, especially right now because it's over. It's done. Those guys are on another team, and ultimately we just need to move on. We need to look at our team and see what we're going to do for the future. And then jump to the Marlins series. Obviously, we lose 3 out of 4. I thought we'd split that, but you know, we had chances today, Sunday, to kind of win that game, take it from Sandy. But ultimately, just like the rest of the season, we just didn't hit. We got a crazy outing, spot outing from Stock, and just we just couldn't capitalize like we normally do. So I'm not gonna harp too much on the week that was. This is not going to be a crazy long video. We're going to come back at you tomorrow for the end of the trade deadline. But just to finish the series, it's just a typical series that we had this year. Typical end to the series and a typical finish because ultimately, what do we have? Our offense isn't playing well. Polanco is basically getting booed out the building. Bichette, has done well lately, but this series reverted back to being Bichette, and um, and ultimately that's it. That's it. That's been the move. So, um, but I digress. Um, it's good to see Stock give us that outing. Brasban and Rayleigh to give us the outings that they did today. But ultimately, it wasn't good enough, just like it hasn't been all year. And so um, it is what it is. I'm not stressing too much about it. So let's get to the Peralta trade. Freddie didn't work out here for whatever reason. I know around the league, everybody wants to talk about the Mets ruining Freddie. I think there's other factors to Freddie. Um, you know, Stuff that he, I think, was starting to figure out, but not completely. It's funny, because Peterson is doing well with the Cubs. It's funny how the Mets are ruining players, but you got. I know Thornton didn't have good outing, but that's going to happen to Thornton just because of the type of pitcher he is. But Scott, McLean, and Thornton are pitching well, but we messed up Freddie. It's funny, I don't know how you can put those things together, but at the end of the day, I don't care as long as we get some players back. And obviously, with Freddie, he gets traded to Tampa Bay. With us, he was a struggle bus, right? Couldn't get to 5 innings. I talked about this last week. He was known as 5 inning Freddie before coming to the Mets. So that's the other funny part. He was already known as 5 inning Freddie before coming into the Mets, but the Mets ruined him. Ultimately, the reason why the Mets traded for Peralta was to bring a little bit veteran presence and stability to a rotation that was going to feature Nolan McLean. And they didn't want to put that pressure on Nolan McLean. Rightfully so, because he had his own struggles this year. And so you didn't want that on Nolan McLean. You wanted it on Freddie. And that's what happened. All the pressure got on Freddie. He's a veteran. He's done it before. And I just think, between, some people say the ABS, between him already being a 5 inning Freddie, but, the pressures of maybe, family, because, they used to go to Mets games, so a lot of factors, I think, going on when it comes to Freddie. And it's just disappointing because I like Freddie. He seems like a good guy, and it would have been nice for him to be a stabilizing force for this rotation. And unfortunately, he wasn't. and it's okay. But um, you know, what can you do? So what did the Mets do? The Mets traded him to Tampa Bay, and so what does that mean for us? For the Mets. Well, we traded for three players, and um, I think the I mean, I'm not gonna tell you exactly what all is. These players are a crapshoot, but traded for three players, and hold on one second. I'm looking at my notes here. Thought I had this already set up, but I apologize. But three guys, believe outfielder, infielder, and pitcher, and um, the one guy that seems the most promising and probably has a ceiling of a fourth outfielder is 24. And still in high A. So we'll see. Power guy, high strikeouts, and we'll see what the Mets do with him. But it's one of those guys that got to cut down his strikeouts, right? If you don't cut down his strikeouts, he's just one that's not going to pan out. But after the uh, LA trade for Scooble and them not really getting a whole lot for the best pitcher available, I would say it's it's on par. We get three of the Tampa Bay's top 30, right? No, none in their top 10, but they have a good farm system, and so most likely these guys are going to hit our top 30, and maybe even our top 20, because our system isn't as strong as Tampa Bay's. And so, what does that mean ultimately, right? I got it here. Aiden Smith. Um, is their the Rays number 15th prospect. The pitcher is Gary Gill Hill, and the Emilion Petrie. What does that mean? Ultimately, we don't know. We're not going to know. The thing is that these guys might get used as trade pieces, right? Trade pieces for somebody else in in the off season, and that's what I'm thinking is going to happen here. I don't think we're going to see a lot of these guys, right? We traded for a 24-year-old outfielder, and what is he going to be? Is it going to be a battle for the fifth outfielder position with Morabito? Because both of the guys are older. Morabito's already in our on the 40 man. I think I'm not sure if these guys are eligible or not that need to be put on the 40 man. I'd have to look at that, but ultimately. Um, it's one of those things where we're not going to know. I'm thinking, especially Aiden Smith, since he is 24, maybe does a little bit of production here towards the end of the season. It'd be interesting to know if they send him to Brooklyn or to Binghamton. You know, um, I'm not sure if he's a righty or lefty. I probably should look that up. But the interesting thing on that is if he's a lefty, I wouldn't be surprised if them sending him to Binghamton right away, right? Because Brooklyn zaps lefty power. But it'd be interesting. I would like to kind of see if that's the case. Um, but what I'm thinking is that they're going to trade these guys for some pieces in the offseason, especially the 24-year-old, unless they're thinking that he's going to be our fifth outfielder next year. between him or Morabito. We'll see, taking over for Tyrone Taylor, because I know Tyrone Taylor came out and said that he wanted to be here, but ultimately that's a tough ask, right? Unless he, and I'm not saying now to be traded or not to be traded. The smart thing is if somebody comes calling for Tyrone Taylor, you trade him. But the question is, do you re-sign him? And for a guy that's going to be riding your bench, because honestly, guys, we got three outfielders right now. Until Soto wants to either play first base or be a DH, we got three outfielders. So there's no room for anybody but backups in the outfield. Anybody but guys that want to play sparingly and give guys some rest. That's the guys that that are available, that are going to be wanted needed for the Mets team. Does Tyrone Taylor want to be that guy? I don't think so, because he's still young enough that he can find at least a platoon, play the majority, maybe the majority of the time, or somebody will start him. Because he is a good player, a good defensive player, and can get on a heater. And he can take somebody's position. He did it. The Mets signed Harrison Bader, and at the end of the season, Tyrone Taylor took the job, right? Because Harrison Bader couldn't hit, and Tyrone Taylor shows flashes. So, and both those guys were righties. So, at the end of the day, if somebody comes calling for Tyrone Taylor, you trade him. And I know he wants to be here, which is great, but he is a fourth outfielder. And yes, you want a veteran for that fifth outfielder, whichever one you choose. It doesn't matter. You flip flop. It could be a young guy and a veteran. You want that to be, and if he wants to come back on a nice contract, I wouldn't mind seeing Tyrone Taylor back. But if somebody comes calling, you trade him. And this is the question with Aiden Smith, right? Is he going to become Tyrone Taylor? I don't think, based on what I'm hearing and stuff like that he's going to be anything more than a Tyrone Taylor, because of the strikeouts. He's got probably may have better power than Tyrone Taylor, but because of the strikeouts, it's not going to be pretty. But I digress. And for as far as Freddie, look, I'm not here hating on Freddie. It didn't work out. That's it. I hope he leads Tampa Bay to a championship, because, like I said, Freddie's a nice guy. Wish it would have worked out here. Still got family here, over in New York, and go win a championship with Tampa Bay. Let it be. Tampa Bay seems like they're somewhat going for it. I wouldn't say Peralta would be the guy to put you over the top. But if he becomes the Peralta from Milwaukee, where he gives you a good 5 to 6 solid innings, so be it. It's all good. Let's do it. So I'm not here hating on Peralta. I'm not going to hate on Peralta. I hope he wins a championship with Tampa Bay. That's it. As far as AJ Minter, this is going to be quick. AJ Minter at this stage of his career, wasn't an extremely high leverage guy. As you saw him for the Mets, he wasn't. And I wish him the best. I liked what he said when he said goodbye. We welcomed in a rival, longtime rival, and welcomed them in. We did, and so no no hard feelings. Ultimately, injuries happen. Um, started the season off last year well, and then got hurt and was out for the season. Um, it's hard to hate a guy that you barely see, to be honest with you. Um, I don't know what else to say about that. It's hard to hate a guy, but one of the guys that we got for him, let me see. Um, Hold on one second. Billy Amick, another outfielder, or no, sorry, first baseman, outfield prospect, I believe. And Billy Amick is in his first night with the Rumble Ponies. Um, Hits a home run. Gets, I think, what, 2 for 4, I believe. Um, and hits a home run with it. So maybe there's some pieces that we use and send. Like I said, I believe that David Stearns is going to rack up a whole bunch of pieces to solidify this team for next year. Um, what he does with that, I'm not sure. We'd have to see what guys are available in the trade market in the offseason. Right now you can't see that. We can speculate, but we can't really see that. But I believe that he's gathering all these pieces, and who knows, Billy Amick might stay here and become the first baseman of the future. Right? He's a similar player to Ryan Clifford. Is he a better version of Ryan Clifford? I don't know. We'll see. You know, he's a right-handed bat, which is something that we need because we're kind of left-handed heavy. So we'll see. But some of the pieces that David Stern sold got players in return. Ruiz, who kind of killed us this weekend a little bit, I say that tongue in cheek, was in the Yelich trade, and when they got Yelich. So you never know what's going to happen. Um, so I want to finish off this podcast by talking about I'm a transition because I'm guys. I'm gonna be honest. I did a little bit of research, but I'm not big on the prospect. You go to Ernest Dove for that. He can give you more of a breakdown on the minor leagues. And so you go listen to Ernest Dove and check him out. But or guys in the Met Stop podcast, they kind of have a little bit more of an idea of these guys. But I'm not gonna sit here and break down each player. Um, One, prospects. What's the saying? Prospects are suspects, and until they pan out, they don't, and you can't expect them to. Um, just like this year, was I expecting Ewing to have the season that he's having? No. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is what's going to happen with these players. Not going to do it. The only thing I can speculate is that maybe they're part of a future plan to trade for somebody, or give you an idea of where they might land on this ball club. Um, but like for the Tampa Bay guys, most of them were too far away. So 2 of the 3 are too far away to even consider even talking about. So many things can change by the time they're ready. And you know, and with the AJ Minter trade, the biggest piece that is the Billy Amick. And there's 3 guys now fighting for positioning on who's going to be the better player coming out of those 3 now, with between Ryan Clifford, Billy Amick, and Jacob Reimer. Kind of all similar type players. two righties, one lefty, that are going to battle it out for that power bat, that next power bat for the Mets. Or maybe not. Maybe they get traded somewhere else. But ultimately, I'm going to finish the podcast in a few minutes. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about Senga. There was a report out that the Padres were interested in Kodai Senga. Let's go. What else? What else? What else am I going to say? If if the Padres want Kodai Senga, send them. You know, it didn't work out. I know he had a decent outing Friday. I'm not going to say he had a great outing, but because it was only 4 innings. But also, I'm not going to say it was a bad outing because it was 4 innings after not seeing the field for what was it, 12 days, 12 games. He didn't pitch for the Mets. And so he showed flashes of that rookie season that we've been all dreaming about. But was that fool's gold? I think it's fool's gold. So trade him. Whatever San Diego wants, as long as they take the contract. I know what y'all gonna say. Um, just get rid of him to open up the spot. Sorry, guys, that's just not going to happen. I don't think, unless we're getting something very valuable in return, I don't think that Stearns or Cohen want to pay down that contract. They'd rather see him out of the bullpen. Sorry, I think that's what's going to happen. So um, I'm hoping that um, we get something. He gets traded. And see what we get for him. But again, I'm not here just to give away guys, especially I think it'll be his last season next year. If I'm wrong on that, you can correct me in the comments. But ultimately, if the Padres want him, send them. Mania, I don't know if anybody wants Mania. He looks like he's back. It's not just one outing now. It's different from the Senga. It's not just one outing. He's had a few outings now where he's looked like the guy that somewhat like the guy that we resigned, like the Mets resigned. But ultimately, if somebody is willing to give something up for him, but as we saw with the trades today, or with the trade with Skubal and some of the other guys, they're not, teams aren't giving up much. We were hoping for a top 100 guy, and unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't even know if Weaver's going to get us that. We'll see. Tomorrow's the day that we'll see. But Gossman just got traded to the Cubs. Does Clay Holmes get traded? To me, that's a interesting thing with Clay Holmes right now. And I didn't see if he pitched or not in Brooklyn. I barely was able to catch up with the replay of the game. And so I don't know if he pitched or not. He was scheduled to pitch for Brooklyn. I don't know if he pitched. But ultimately, it's going to be interesting because if you're not getting anything of value back for Clay Holmes, this is what I'm going to say. If you're not going to get anything of value for Clay Holmes, just keep him and give him an extension. I'm not here to just send them over for some guys that really aren't going to be of any value. Obviously, he should get you more than Peralta because from the reports, everybody was wanting him more than anybody else. But now with the Cubs out, after trading for Gaussman. How many suitors are left for uh, for uh, for Clay Holmes, right? You had the Cubs, and the Braves just picked up Tyler Mahle from San Francisco, and you have a couple of guys left in the pitching market, right? You got Clay Holmes, Robbie Ray from San Francisco. Um, you got Paxson in St. Louis. Reed Detmers, if he's available. I don't know if he's available. They say he's available, but I don't know if he's going to get traded. Hunter Green, I think, is available too, but I don't know if he's going to get traded either because that's what they say that he's available, but I'm not sure. Um, but how many teams are there to buy? Right, you got the Phillies left. You got um, the Phillies. You got Boston, which I don't think really need any pitching right now. Tampa Bay got their guy. Um, so how many teams are at Pittsburgh? I know where was asking about relievers. That's at least what the reports say that they were looking into Weaver and stuff like that. But you know, if there's not really a market anymore for Clay Holmes, keep him, keep him, give him the extension. And I think that's what's going to happen. If he doesn't get traded, he's going to get an extension. Um, More likely that he gets traded, but if he doesn't get traded, I think he gets an extension. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see the trade deadline. Let me look real quick before I end this, see if there's anything else that has happened before the close of tonight. And nothing. Nothing. Gossman was the last thing that happened tonight so far. We might see something later, in a couple hours. These things like to hit around midnight sometimes, which I don't know why, but or overnight. But we'll see. Guys, before I get out of here, subscribe to the channel, like this video. Let me know how you're feeling, how you felt about Peralta, how you feel about AJ Minter. How do you feel? Let me know. And let me know in the comments on replay. Share this with a friend. Let them know as well. And again, we're going to be coming at you tomorrow again to kind of put a whole ribbon on the trade deadline. But guys, until tomorrow, let's go Mets.